I'll start now. Hello and a very good evening to everyone who has joined us today. My name is Samira Sohani. I'm the Head of Research Advisory and Training Unit of Bangladesh Rating Agency Limited. Every month, BDRL arranges a webinar addressing significant and contemporary issues regarding the economy and business. And as you all know that recently the Finance Ministry has proposed a budget for fiscal year 2022 and 23. In that budget, there were some reforms made regarding the corporate taxes. So today, the topic of our webinar is reforms of corporate tax and its implication in tax revenue generation. And with us today, we have here a very diligent professional and a very active policy expert, Mr. Snehashish Borua. Sir is a qualified chartered accountant from ICAEW. He has the experience in providing audit tax and consultancy services for MNCs, large manufacturing corporation organizations, banks and financial institutes, including Bangladesh Bank. Welcome to our webinar, Snehashish sir. We're very, very honored to have you with us. And of course, we have here Dr. Abdullah Mamun sir as our moderator. He's the CEO of BDRL. So before handing over to Mamun sir, I would like to add that there would be a question and answer session at the end of our webinar. So if you have any question, please ask. So now I would like to ask Mamun sir to start our discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Samira, for your humble and nice introduction. And good evening, everyone. And welcome to today's monthly webinar on corporate tax reforms and its implication on tax revenue generation. As Samira mentioned that this is the monthly webinar. We, as a credit rating company, with the foster hope to become like knowledge-based company, BDRL is always look for creating knowledge and also disseminating knowledge among the community, and would like to interact with the professionals so that we can bridge the gap between different professionals and their thought. So as part of that initiatives, we organize monthly webinar on different contemporary issues. And as we all know that at this moment, one of the burning issue is that budget and related fiscal policy related issues. And we are also delighted that we have the Chief Rating Officer of the BDRL, Mr. Sohail Khan, ACMA, and my colleagues and all participants. We are delighted for your participation, and I hope you will be with us to be enlightened with a very rich discussion from the Snehashish Borua. Is a very eminent finance professional. So as part of our ritual, we just want to introduce about our company. That is, today's topic is on reforms of corporate tax and its implication in tax revenue generation. As you all know that in the proposed budget of this year, one of the major reforms government has taken, that is corporate tax, to diversify the export basket as well as to widen the tax revenue generation base. So that is why we have chosen this area, which may be the instrumental for overall fiscal policy reforms as well. So BDRL is a Dun & Bradstreet company which has been incorporated in Bangladesh in 2008. and it has got the license from Bangladesh Bank in 2012. And we provide our core services that we provide the credit rating, and we have already rated 30,000 SMEs and more than 200 corporates. And Dun & Bradstreet is a almost 200 years long company. It's a US-based global company, and we have almost 90% of the Fortune 500 company rely on the DNB data. And interestingly, we have more than 400 million business records. It's almost near to the 450 million business records we have. And one of the glorious legacies is that ex-4 president of the USA were the employee of Dun & Bradstreet. And across the world, we have 200 plus offices, 400 million, around 450 million business records, and 100,000 quality checks. And Dun & Bradstreet, same, South Asia Middle East Limited, looks after the businesses of the South Asia, Africa, and Middle East. We have already the operation in the 67 markets, and in South Asia 6, Middle East 11, and the Africa 50, which is the head office in the Dubai. And BDRL is one of the subsidiary of the DBSIM. And these are the operational services line. So we engage, like DBSIM, engage in the risk management solution, rating agency services, credit bureau solution, sales and marketing solution, economic analysis, and research and advisory services, and financial technology solutions. And the key engagement of the BDRL is that credit rating. We are the regular, like a licensed credit rating company in Bangladesh, and we provide these regulatory services. And we also engage in research and advisory services. Particularly, we conduct economic analysis, industry analysis, and business advisory services, and ESG analysis. And we have a publication that is an SMEs of Bangladesh series we publish. We have already published 4 series, and we do also impact analysis report. And we have also conducted different trainings, including financial statement analysis, risk management, business strategy, and the financial planning. And our underlying intention is that we want to find the truth from data. We are a data company, but we try to find the truth, economic reality from the data. And through the better insights, we want to help the business for taking better decisions. Ultimately, we want to do the credible credit rating for sustainable economic growth as well as the farm's growth. And as we know, the backdrop to that, the trend of tax revenue demonstrate that it is growing due to growing the economy. But unfortunately, what we can see that our tax revenue to GDP ratio is one of the lowest. So the figure also gives us the opportunity that we have huge opportunity to widen our tax base, and we can increase our tax revenue as well, which may strengthen our debt affordability as well. And today's session, we are very much privileged that Snehashish Barua, FCA, is a very eminent professional, is agreed to share his understanding and insights with all the participants, and I believe that will be enlightened from the discussion. And after his presentation, then we may have the opportunity for interacting to explore a few more issues. So if anyone would like to have any questions, you are welcome. At the end of the presentation, you can come up with the questions. I hope we'll be very happy to receive your questions and to interact. So now may I request Snehashish Borua to give his presentation. Dada, please.
Thank you, Mamun. Can you hear me?
So yeah, we can hear. I can stop my sharing. Yeah.
So thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me here to share my presentation as well as my thought in this tax revenue generation. So on my personal behalf, I would like to thank especially to you, being the CEO of the company, and your whole team who has taken this initiative for sharing this knowledge at this very point in time. Yeah. So nevertheless, this is the high time for discussion, I think. And thanks to Samira also, she had been contacting me and making sure that I'm here. Unfortunately, I'm delayed by almost 45 minutes. It's my bad. My apologies to all of you. Once again. So Mamun, as you have mentioned, I will try to give my presentation on the corporate tax first, and then definitely I will try to bring all my experience in this, especially in this corporate tax, since today's topics cover, corporate tax part only. So can you see my screen, Mamun?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, can see. Fine. So you can see the bridge, okay? Hopefully we'll be able to at least run through this bridge in like a couple of months' time. And we are hopeful for the country. So
with Elish Fry.
Yeah, with Elish Fry. So what I tried to do actually, as Samira has mentioned, our Honorable Finance Minister has placed the 51st budget of the country in the National Parliament back in 9th of June 2022. And today we are sitting on 20th, so it's just 11 days afterwards. So what I did, I tried to scratch those or decode those provisions mentioned in the finance bill. I've also looked into budget space and related SRO to bring these changes relating to corporate taxes. Perhaps I've also shared this in social media where you will see there are greater context of it. So my request would be like, if you see anything contradicts with my presentation, please do refer to those original text in the bills, which will be enacted through the Finance Act. So I believe before going into the context of corporate tax, let us try to have a look into our whole budget size. So this year, the government has placed a budget for 678,000 crores, which is 14% higher than last year. And out of that, you'll see that revenue earnings have been estimated by 433,000. And this is also 11.3% higher. So the budget size is increasing and revenue earnings have been proposed to be increased by like 11%. So, and out of that total revenue earnings, 370,000 crore has been estimated to be earned by NBR. So one of our part is direct tax. So right now, direct tax contribute roughly 30 to 31% of the total collection of NBR. So, and this collection from NBR has been targeted to increase by 12%. And I have seen in the past, there were so many budgets and not all of them were very, very realistic. In some cases, I found the growth was comparatively higher at very high end. So now, if you look into the budget deficits part of it, then you'll see there's a deficit of 245,000, which is again higher by 19.84%. So the way government has been planning is like we always do a deficit budget because our earnings from NBR, which Mamun has rightly pointed out, our tax GDP ratio is lower. And at this point in time, if you see that our collection is not up to that extent. So we always do the deficit financing or deficit budget kind of thing. So the deficit is increasing on a year by year basis. And we are very hopeful that our GDP will continue to grow at 7.5%, and which is 3.4% higher than last year. And we all know where we are now. Actually, I should give a very special thanks to the current finance minister and led by our Honorable Prime Minister, because at this point in time, doing a budget or kind of preparing a budget is not a very, very easy task, especially when you see that due to this Russia-Ukraine conflict, the whole global supply chain system has been disrupted. And what this is leading towards, this is leading towards increased cost. And we can feel the pulse when we are going to the market and see in everywhere there are price hikes. So although the estimation of inflation is roughly 5.6% over the year, but it is really, really difficult to keep this inflation at this point in time, because we can see already there are double-digit inflation everywhere. And not only Bangladesh, if you look into the global trend, then you will see even in the US, they have seen more than 8% inflation. And in the UK, they have got like around 9% inflation. And due to this, almost in UK, just few days back, I have seen they have increased their rate of interest by 0.75%. And they have increased their interest rate in last, I should say, 3 months by at least 0.25, 0.75, and now again 0.75. UK has also revised their, their rates, interest rate. So the European community, they are also European Central Bank also thinking about raising the interest rate. So all these will lead towards, additional finance cost. Ultimately, things will be costlier for us. So there is a common proverb saying like when the European country or the developed economy sneezes, and in Asia specifically and rest of the world, they catches cold. So you will feel the cold in coming days. So I think this is one of the biggest thing that government will have to achieve, and we'll have to keep our fingers crossed. And then if you look into the total budget size that we have been talking about, 678,000 is the total budget, and out of that 370 would be collected by NBR through its sources, and remaining amount is supposed to be collected through non-NBR kind of receipts. And then operating expenditure is estimated at 373,000. As you can see, we cannot meet our operational expenses through our internal revenue collections. It will be a deficit of 3,000 crore, 370 versus 373, but that will be covered through other non-NBR taxes. But government is very ambitious because they have got a very high development expenditure budget, which is 259,000. And these will be financed by external sources, specifically through foreign loan for 98,000. And they will also borrow from the banking sources, which is 106,000. And all these numbers, if you look into revised budget of last year, the external sources loan was supposed to be 80,000 crore, and they are estimating almost 18,000 crore additional finance through international development agencies. So we really need to push forward because we need all this financing to run this annual development program. And if you look into Mamoon has already given you a very background like on the revenue collection. If you look into the revenue collection target, দেখেন, at certain point in time, not very far, 10 থেকে 11 বছর আগে, our target was 80,000 কোটি overall revenue collection. Overall, I'm saying. এখন শুধু ট্যাক্স থেকে কালেক্ট হয় almost 84,000 or 90,000 crore. That collect হয় 1 lakh কোটি টাকার উপরে. So in 10 years time, if you can see how it has evolved, total revenue collection actual was 75,000 crore থেকে 328,000 crores. So if you look into the number will speak how the revenue collection has grown. But আমাদের GDP যেভাবে grow হচ্ছে, unfortunately, our growth is not up to that level. এজন্য you will see the tax to GDP ratio has gone down. And you will have to also give a special thanks to NBR officials. See, on a year-by-year growth, you'll see 22% growth, 23% growth, 11% growth. Only there was a slight, I should say, a shorter growth in 14-15, and we all know about 2019-20, what has happened. During the pandemic days, the revenue has gone down, but it was not negative. It has grown by 5.5%, and since the base was lower, this has grown higher in 23.60%. And I believe with all this thing, the revenue collection target that has been set in this year, 12% মতো growth দেখা হয়েছে, I believe that is achievable target. That is not unrealistic target like last year's যেগুলোতে ছিল আর কি. And if you look into the expenditure part of it, budgeted expenditure এর সাথে, then you will see যে whatever budget you see যে আমার deficit financing এর জন্য, government cannot end up spending everything. মানে আমাদের যে annual development program গুলো হয় ওগুলো they do not utilize the funds in full. That's why you see 90% থেকে 85 মানে কত আপনার 83% থেকে highest budget implementation হয়েছিল 98% back in 2010-11 where তারা যে revised budget size ছিল হ্যাঁ so 130,000 তার মধ্যে 120,000 খরচ করে ফেলছিল. But if you look into latest figure, especially 1920 during pandemic days, where their revised budget size was 5,01,000 crore, they could have spent up to 420,000 crore. So significant amount portion remained non-implemented or unimplemented. So this means whatever deficit you see, deficit আসলে এত হয় না কারণ if you do not implement those things, you do not borrow money from external or internal source. So that's why you'll see the curve over last 10 years time. The curve has shown a very steep growth in terms of expenditure, but not in terms of collection. So you'll see this gap is being increased from 25,000 crore chilo age, আর এখন হয়ে যাচ্ছে কত almost like আপনার 35 plus 20, like 155,000 crore এর একটা deficit because we're spending more than we are collecting from our internal revenue sources. So now coming to our topic of today, so we have got an estimated 370,000 crore collection target as compared to 330,000. If you look at the revenue mix or sources of fund, then you'll see 32% is estimated to come from income tax, which is 121,000, and then this is like it was 104,000 crore in last year. So when you see the components of direct tax is increasing as compared to other taxes, it means you have signs of growth that you are collecting income from people who are earning it. So it means your direct sources are increasing. This is a very good sign. And if we can see, if we look into the developed country perspective, then you will see they are more reliant on direct tax rather than indirect taxes. But we cannot ignore indirect tax at all because the highest contribution is coming from VAT. And next two part is dependent on import related duty and supplementary duty. So we cannot ignore their contribution because this has got significant impact in our total collection. And VAT 141,000 as compared to 128,000. So now if you look into the target actual revenue collection for current year, I should say 21-22 is very promising as compared to even last year. So that you can see in case of income tax, up to April, based on the information that I have collected from NBR, 59,000 crore was collected in 10 months. And now, during this period of time, already 69,000 crore has been collected. We all know June is the month where you get higher revenue collections. So I believe with all these things, the estimated collections would be at least close to the revised budget. And this graph also tells you the story. So these are all from, I should say, budget related overall part. But now we are going to look into what major changes have been proposed for this upcoming year. So if you don't mind, I need to switch my internet connections. Can you hear me now? Samira?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Sorry for the interruption. I had to switch from my mobile network to my Wi-Fi. So I'm back at home. So now, from direct tax point of view, first of all, I must tell all of you, like I have seen a lot of creativity in this finance bill. And I have also seen there are a lot of initiatives being taken by the government for doing ease of business, some kind of measures they have taken. And also, we talk about some kind of international tax related issues, and they try to bring those points together into this finance bill as well. And I don't know whether you will agree with me, this year, the kind of provisions that has been amended through Finance Bill 2022 is quite huge, and it's not a small document. So what we can see, this is these tax related policies, these are changing on a day-to-day basis because the global is moving to that direction and we cannot remain silent. We'll have to cater all those provisions in our income tax provisions too. And I have also seen from FDI point of view, the government tried to accommodate a few points which will definitely attract the foreign direct investors in doing business in Bangladesh. Nevertheless, whenever you will see new laws are coming, and nothing comes without challenges. And we have seen a few areas where challenges are there too. So I'm going to take you through one by one, and later at the part, as Mamoon has mentioned, let me take you through the presentation directly. And then when the presentation is over, you can ask me the questions, and you have the chat box. You can write your question in the chat box so that we can take all the questions at the end of the session. I believe, Mamoon, that will be acceptable. Huh? So first, the good news is the corporate tax rate, where we have been struggling answering to our foreign counterpart or whoever is coming to invest in Bangladesh, or even the local businesses. People tell us your tax rate is really high. You'll have to give a special thanks to the government because they have shown the courage. I don't know how courageous they are, but they are too courageous. In last 2 years, they have reduced the rate by 5%. And this year, again, they have taken the risk to reduce the rate by 2.5% more. So I believe this kind of policy shift gives a very good outlook for the businesses, not only from FDI point of view. So I think these sort of changes are really encouraging. Now you can say, like, what is the tax rate in China? Chinese tax rate, standard rate is 25%. But for Bangladesh perspective, we can say our tax rate is 20%, because for listed company, the rate has been proposed to be reduced from 22.5 to 20%. And there are other changes too. But what we have seen is, like, in last 2 years, the change of rate was not attached with any conditions. Now, this change of rates, or in order to enjoy this reduced rate kind of thing by 2.5%, you'll have to fulfill certain conditions. So these are conditional. These are not unconditional. And the whole objective of this condition is to ensure a level playing field, and it's to ensure transparency and accountability in our whole process. So if we look into the major change for listed company, again, not for listed company like tobacco, telecom, bank, or insurance company, because these are very specific types of company whose tax rates are not like 22.5%. So what has been proposed? So if it is a listed publicly traded company, for example, if it is, say, Bata Shoe Company, they are a publicly traded company. So if Bata's share is traded for more than 10%, or their more than 10% shares are held with the public through IPO, then if they meet condition number 2, then they will be able to claim 20% tax rate. So number 1 condition is their shares must be traded in excess of 10%, and those have been raised to through IPO. Now, going back to condition number 1, you'll have to give a break, or you'll have to pause for a while, because you'll have to see the related regulation, what BSEC regulation says, what income tax regulation used to tell. Income tax regulation used to tell you, look, if your shares are held at least 10% to the public, then you will be able to claim certain benefit, or rates will be down by 5% or 10%. Those were the conditions. Now you'll have to be very careful. It is not less, it is not a 10% or more, it is above 10%. So now, even if Bata's shares are held by at least 10% of the shareholders are public, still Bata will not be entitled to this benefit, because they will have to increase it by more than 10%. And in this 10%, what they have mentioned about IPO, initial public offer. Again, if you go by IPO regulations, IPO means it is first time when you are raising the capital. So in many occasions, companies are not raising capital initially at its full. Sometimes they do repeat public offer. Sometimes they offer right shares. Sometimes many company comes to the stock exchanges through direct listing. It is not through IPO. So now the nomenclature itself is very confusing, and I believe NBR is working on it to change the nomenclature and to make sure that the companies are entitled to this benefit. So Number one condition is very, very tricky. You'll have to be very, very careful in applying this reduced rate. And then if it happens that your condition number one is fulfilled, and then there are condition number two. So if your shares are held by more than 10%, and if it comes to IPO, then you are fulfilling the condition number one. Then if you also fulfill condition number two, then you'll get that 20% tax rate. Not if you do not fulfill condition number two, then your tax rate will remain as it is, which is 22.5%. So what is condition number two? In condition number two, there are two sub-conditions, I should say. One is all of your receipts must come through banking channel. Whatever revenue you generate, you must collect those revenue through banking channel. And you cannot spend more than 12 lakhs taka a year for your investment and expenditure through cash. So in excess of 12 lakhs, every expenditure you'll have to spend through banking channel. So you will have to evaluate our current economic situation, and also you'll have to evaluate our current infrastructure. So now it seems we'll have to make a very cashless economy from last year, from July 1, 2021, because this rate is applicable for assessment year 22-23. So you'll have to go back and change things. Are we ready for that? So if you look into sub-condition number one of condition number two, all receipts from sales. If you look into your business cycle, then you will see how companies are running business. Say, for example, Mamoon through BDRL. So through BDRL, maybe you have a lot of corporate customers because they need rating. So these corporate customers can pay you through account pay check, can pay you through banking transfer, or they can use the mobile financial services. But how about the companies who are doing business like directly through consumers? If you think about Bata Shoe Company, how they are running the business. So you go and enter into any shop. Sometimes you are paying cash. Sometimes you are paying through credit cards or debit cards. So not all customers ought to purchase through debit cards and credit cards. A majority or significant amount of our customers are still preferring through cash. So it means we have got a lot of informal economy, and our economy is primarily driven by SMEs. So now, without having adequate infrastructure for the SMEs, it is not possible to collect all the revenue through banking channel. And then if you look into condition number two, this is like a suit fits for all. So the jacket that I'm wearing, perhaps it will not fit to Mamoon because he is comparatively healthier than me. So my suit and his suit would not be similar. So if Mamoon has transaction like if he is spending 5,000 crore a year, maybe my revenue is less than 2 crore a year. So for less than 2 crore revenue, my expenditure may be 1.5 crore. So for me, maybe 12 lakh ceiling is okay. But for Mamoon, who is doing business of 7,000 crore, maybe his expenditure is around 5,000 crore. So from 5,000 crore, you cannot guarantee him that he can only pay 12 lakhs taka through cash. And if you look into our income tax ordinance, section 30 says there are certain limits they have given in the law. So number one limit is like you can purchase raw material up to taka 5 lakh through cash. You can pay your salaries up to 20,000 taka as cash. You can pay any other payments except for rent through cash up to taka 50,000. These are all instance basis. So now, without removing those sections or the limits that has been there in section 30, you cannot propose like 12 lakhs for every company. So I believe the smart idea would be let us make all those provision, whatever there in section 30 applicable, then gradually we can move to cashless. Or we can make a proportion like 10% of your total expenditure can be paid through banking channel. And also in parallel, we need to remove all those limits mentioned in section 30. Otherwise, it will be conflicting with one and other area. So I'm not going to take much of your time on this, but this is one of the significant policy change that has happened. And already I have mentioned about it. I'm not going to talk about it again. And for the non-publicly traded company, So there are a lot of public company, maybe they are not they are not in stock exchanges, and there are a lot of private company. They can also get that reduced rate of 27.5% if they fulfill these two conditions, not IPO. An association of person, artificial juridical person, or 1% company, all of them can enjoy reduced rate that 27.5% if they fulfill these two conditions. You know, this one condition, not two condition, this revenue generation, revenue collection through banking channel, and the expenditure related provision. As I mentioned, that there are a lot of clarity being made, level playing field being made through this change of tax policy. Is like, we know garments group has been privileged because their tax rate is only 10%. And if they are green factory, if they are not green, their tax rate is 12%. So now we can see there is a level playing field being created, because if you are even a leather manufacturer and exporting leather to other countries, if you are exporting flour, vegetables, whatever you export, now if you are an exporter, you will get the similar rate like RMG. If it is a green factory, 10%, and if you are not a green factory, it will be 12%. We must welcome this sort of initiative. And for garments, it is not mentioned how long it will continue, but for other than garments, other than RMG, the rate will continue until 30th June 2028, which means as a professional, you will see you can do some tax planning that the rate will not be changed in next 6 years or so. So we should, in our tax policy, we should have this sort of strategy so that business can plan in advance what would be their tax rate in next few years. And this never comes without condition. Again, there are some condition attached to it. The exporters must have ETIN. They must follow the provision of ITU 1984, and they must also comply with the requirement of environmental policies. We are all talking about ESG, so we need to really take care of our environment. So all these conditions must be fulfilled in order to avail this, reduced rate. And then being curious, honestly, I was trying to do some maths because I like maths. What will happen when you are going to get those benefits? So for example, if you are a 100% export oriented listed leather company, you are doing leather business, you are listed, and you are doing 100% export oriented business. So let us have a look, like, so let's think this year government has not proposed any uniform rate for the garments for other than garments. In our earlier provisions or current provisions, in 6th schedule part A, you will see there are exemptions of 50% exemption for export oriented company. So your income will be down by 50%, means you can claim 50% rebate if you are an exporter. So now if you have PBT or income tax, for income tax purpose we call it income, 200 million. So if you can claim 50% tax rebate, your total income for tax purpose would be 100 million. So if you apply 20% tax rate on that 100 million, your tax charge without change of this uniform rate would come 2 crore or 20 million taka. So now what will happen? If you are not a green factory, then your tax would be 24 million. So now even the rate is rationalized or made uniform, you will see a higher tax bill if you are not a non-green factory. So what you will have to make is like, you'll have to ensure your factory is a green one. And another good move, I should say, from the government side is like, we all talk about like who is on the show, who is on the face. We don't talk about people who are on the back. So now for this RMG, we know we have got a very good backbone. We have got very good textile company. We have got a good large number of spinning mills and other backward industries. So for those backward industries, tax rate was 15%. So the good thing is like this 15% tax will remain until 30th June 2025. So at least all these backward linkages industry can see or forecast their rate for next 3 years or so. And also they'll have to fulfill the conditions that I have mentioned earlier. I'm not going to repeat those conditions again. Again, we must be thankful that we can at least forecast our tax rates in next few years. And we all know the government was very responsive in last few years because they made the budget on an inclusive basis. So we included transgender employee related tax incentive. We also included physically challenged people related incentives. So the conditions for those tax rebate was very, very complex. I should say those were not so business friendly. So you had to employ 10% of total employee or 100 employees, be it transgender or physically challenged people. So finding 100 of those people was very, very difficult. So now the condition has been relaxed. Right now, you need to employ 10% of your total employee or 25 employees. So now people will be encouraged to employ these people. So in my personal view, still finding 25 physically challenged people or transgender people would be really, really difficult. And perhaps, I don't know how many of you follow the statistics. I have looked into the statistics, especially when I see or read the newspaper that we are directly transporting from Bangladesh to Europe, and this is being carried by Bangladeshi vessel. So far as the official statistics are concerned, right now, Bangladeshi flag carrier ocean-going vessel is almost 85. More than 10 big companies have invested in these areas. So now, if you are a Bangladeshi flag carrier ocean-going company, then if you receive all those freight in foreign currency, then your income would be tax exempt. The only condition is you will have to bring the freight into the country. If you are connected with the business, then if you speak to any businessman, all will tell you, look, freight cost has increased exponentially. It has gone too high. So now, if we can encourage all those Bangladeshi businessmen to build these ships, then what it is going to do? It is not only going to increase our revenue earnings through export, it is not only going to reduce our timing for shipment, but also it is going to preserve foreign currency, because ultimately we are sending all those freight to all those foreign flag carrier company. So those will not be sent. So, and you will see a lot of investments that will happen, a lot of employments will be generated, and this has got direct contribution to our foreign currency reserve, which we are now facing now, not like at this point in time, we are talking about a trade deficit of 28 billion. So the changes that I have shown to you regarding garment related tax rate, so these will definitely give us protection in terms of reducing the trade deficit. And these are really, really welcoming steps from the government side. Now, if you're working for bank or non-banking financial institutions, perhaps you know that these sort of institutions are required to maintain or fulfill the Bangladesh Bank conditions. Bangladesh Bank, through BRPD or through different circulars, they tell you, look, you have to transfer a certain amount of your profit to statutory reserve. And if we go by the current law in our section 29, this is considered as an allowable expenses. But right now, through the finance bill, this will not be considered as an allowable expenses. So now, in this example, what I tried to show, if profit before tax for a bank or a listed company or a non-banking financial institution is 5 lakh, and if they have transferred 20,000 taka as special reserve, now their profit before tax was 480,000, and if their tax rate is 37.5, they were supposed to pay a tax of 180,000. So their tax bill was 180,000. So now, if this special reserve is considered as an inadmissible expense, then your effective tax rate will go up by 39%. So I'm not talking about what should be considered as an admissible expenses or not. We'll have to look into broader perspective. Why? Revenue collection is not the ultimate target of the government. It is very, very essential to run your daily operating costs as well as development expenditure, but you'll have to look into other economic aspects too. So these reserves are created to give protections to the depositors, because you cannot take all of your profit, you cannot distribute to the shareholders. So you'll have to keep something so that depositors' interests are protected. So with this sort of thing, we'll definitely give a big blow for the bank and NBFI who are complying with Bangladesh Bank instructions and also being, penalized for those compliances by paying additional taxes. And one of the much topic subjects during this budget discussion, maybe I spoke to at least 10 to 15 journalists, and all of them have spoke about this Workers' Profit Participation Fund. So this sort of fund is not familiar in many countries. I've done some kind of research in the past, especially during 2006 when labor rules were implemented, because our labor law is dated 2006 and this was amended back in July 2013, but the rule came in 2015. So now, as far as the law is concerned, a company, an eligible company whose paid up capital is more than 1 crore or asset size is more than 2 crore, except for bank, insurance, and other company. So they'll have to pay, or they'll have to distribute 5% of their profit before charging these expenses to WPPF. And out of this, 80% are distributed amongst the employee on 2/3, 1/3 basis, and 10% of that 5% is distributed as company welfare fund, and 10% goes to the government. So now I looked into the budget space. So this is the quotation from the budget space. Sorry. This is the quotation from the budget space where our Honorable Finance Minister said, as per Bangladesh Labor Law 2006 or Labor Act 2006, provision is there to make contribution to WPPF, and this is payable from the after-tax profit of a company. So now the question is whether this is payable from after-tax profit of the company. Unfortunately, this is not payable from after-tax profit of the company. This is payable from profit before tax, before charging these expenses, because you will have to look into Company Act 1994. There is a specific section for determination of profit. So the law clearly says, except for tax, net profit means except for tax. So whatever chargeable expenses you have got, that will be calculated to determine net profit, because WPPF is payable on net profit. So this is one of the way. And then if you look into labor law itself, section 244 of the labor law says it is kind of a tax-free expenses in the hands of employer and as well as for the employee. Although we have made amendment in our income tax ordinance that an employee need to pay in excess of taka 50,000 as taxes, whatever benefits you receive from WPPF. So now this sort of thing, you will end up with double taxation, and also a portion of it is payable to the government. So you are paying taxes on the contribution that you have paid to the government exchequer. So it is kind of double taxation. So I believe NBR is looking to it, and the government will also give their positive view. Otherwise, your effective tax rate, as I have shown in the calculation, will go up. So I was supposed to have like, since the tax rate will be reduced to 22.5%, if we can say, from 22%, 20%. So my tax rate will rather go up because of this, additional liability coming from disallowances of WPPF. And then if you look into excess perquisite part of it, we all know we have been debating whether we should pay income tax on excess perquisite, because this is again a tax on tax. And there is a long debate, and there are a lot of companies who have filed reference application to the High Court that they will not pay tax on the perquisite. But the good news is the limit for excess perquisite has been increased from 5,50,000 to 10 lakh, and this will give much comfort to the corporates. And this has also been aligned with the new tax act, the new draft tax act, where the limit is also 10 lakh. We must welcome this sort of reforms for our corporate taxpayer point of view. And then another thing that we have seen which can act as a barrier, we know we need to have compliances, but excessive compliances and or non-fulfillment of compliances should not revoke my entitlement, because we know we have got a lot of tax exemption, which Mamun has also tried to show you. Is like our tax GDP ratio is very low. So this is one of the major reason is exemption is eating up almost all of our contribution to the economy, because we are giving hell lot of exemption for all the mega projects that you see. Almost all of them are tax-free. So how can you get tax? And also government is planning to set up at least 100 SEZ, where you will see there are a lot of tax exemption. Our high-tech park is tax exemption, and there are a lot of areas. And IT-enabled services are also tax exemption until 30th June 2024. So now all these exempted company, they cannot remain tax-free as long as they are not fulfilling the conditions. So what are the conditions? They need to file tax return, which is okay. They need to comply with each and every condition of Chapter 7. Means even if you non-comply with any silly provision of Chapter 7, if you do not deduct and deposit taxes on time, your exemption will be revoked. This will be revoked, and you will have to ensure you are collecting all of your receipt through banking channel, except for individual whose gross turnover is less than 1 crore, does not exceed 1 crore, and they are generating income from agriculture or farming. So if they are not in this bracket, then you'll have to ensure this condition. So right now, since we are talking from policy point of view, whether this is right or wrong. So if you are going to critically analyze this thing, say only because of non-fulfillment of one of the condition, you cannot revoke my entitlement. So what has happened? Similar exemption provisions are there in VAT law. Perhaps you are aware in first schedule, there are a lot of exemptions given, and even in SRO, in different SRO, exemption SRO, time to time government gives exemption. So from NVR point of view, if you look into the part that অব্যাহতি প্রাপ্ত পণ্য বা সেবা সরবরাহ ক্ষেত্রে মানে ভ্যাটের ক্ষেত্রে, if you do not fulfill those conditions, then the VAT authority can penalize you by 1 lakh taka, by maximum 1 lakh taka. Now in income tax, they are proposing not 1 lakh taka, rather your whole income will be tax free. So ভ্যাটে আপনারা বলতেছি যে তোমার exemption থাকবে, কিন্তু কি তোমাকে হয়তো পেনাল্টি দিতে হবে। আর ট্যাক্সে বলতেছি if you do not comply with this provision, then your entire tax-free income will become taxable. So আমার কাছে মনে হয় এখানে এই দুই জায়গার মধ্যে কাইন্ড অফ আমরা কি বলি, এটা একটা সমন্বয়হীনতা বা হয়তো একটা ভুল বুঝাবুঝির ইয়ে থাকতে পারে। সো উই নিড টু অ্যাড্রেস দিস সর্ট অফ থিং, যে আমরা একটা নন কমপ্লায়েন্সের জন্য মানে এই ধরনের আমরা তার এক্সাম্পটেড জিনিসকে উই ক্যানট কনসিডার ইজ ট্যাক্সেবল আর কি। And then we all take pride in made in Bangladesh, because nowadays we talk about more about Walton, because Walton is giving us the brands, I should say brands, and brand is good. Whenever we are going outside, when we see that our products are in the stalls or in the super shop, we feel pride. But the problem is we do not have that much of R&D in our country. If you look into R&D proportion in Bangladesh, then if you look into the data, our R&D to GDP ratio is perhaps lowest as compared to other economies. So why those was not happening? Not only because of we need adequate scientists, we talk about adequate scientists, but our scientists are very, very renowned in world level, and we have got world-class scientists. But the problem is the corporates were not spending that much on R&D. I have got many clients, European clients, their R&D budget is really, really high, especially in the pharma company and other consumer goods company. So what they're evaluating their process, they're doing dynamism in their process in such a way they're catering the need of this age actually. So previously, if you had spent money on R&D, and if it is not a scientific research, then your expenses were inadmissible. It means if you spend 2 crore taka on R&D, if it is not scientific, you had to pay 30% tax on that 2 crore taka. So now the definition of R&D has been redefined. So with this redefinition, I believe a lot of corporates will come forward and invest in new product development and research. And this will take our country ahead of our competitor, and our economy will become sustainable. And as I have said to you, like the creativity, I've also seen creativity in our, I should say, specific provision regarding startup sandbox. Perhaps you know what is startup, but maybe sandbox is not popular. If you Google it, then you'll see what is startup sandbox. So new provision has been created in our income tax ordinance. And again, I must give due credit to all those people connected for these changes. So now, who are these startup sandbox? The company who were incorporated under Companies Act 1994. So you cannot be a sole proprietorship business, and you cannot be a subsidiary of other company. you cannot form this company through amalgamation or demerger, and you must deploy or commercialize a new thing which was not there in the marketplace. And you must work, or your process must be driven by innovation, development, and technology or intellectual property. So you must have something new and coming through your brain, and your turnover cannot exceed 100 crore. So I think many of these conditions, you can say can be fulfilled by our young chap, because I work with many startup incubator. So I have seen a lot of new ideas coming through our young generation. So if we can accelerate them by giving the policy support, I believe a lot of people will take our new company or new innovation at global level. We can talk about like a Zuckerberg in Bangladesh. So now the only limitations that I have seen, that it cannot be a subsidiary of a company. So now if you look into successful startup company, then you'll see most of the companies were a subsidiary of a Silicon Valley company, or their holding company is in Singapore or Hong Kong. Because if you'd like to raise capital, then the foreign VC fund or PE fund, what they try to do, if the foreign company, if the holding company is a foreign co, then they get more reliance on funding that company. So I think this condition of being subsidiary of 50% of shares by others will become, or will act as a barrier for the startup. So now, what are the benefits have been proposed in the proposed finance bill? So now this startup, they don't need to comply with all these withholding tax provision. They don't need to deduct taxes at source. And if they do not comply, the authority will not impose tax on them, which is one of the critical things that you will see for most of the startup. And they can carry forward their loss for 9 years. In a normal company, you can carry forward your loss for 6 years, but for them, the year is 9, means they will get additional 3 years. And for all company, you need to pay, irrespective of profit or loss, you need to pay a minimum tax of 0.6% on your turnover. For them, they'll have to pay 0.1%, 0.5% lower than normal company. And then we are burdened with a lot of reporting obligations to NBR. Every month, we need to submit 2 returns. Every half year, we need to submit 1 return. Every year, we need to submit at least 3 returns. So for them, except for filing return, they don't need to report anything. But all these startups must be registered with NBR, and then their growth period is 5 years. So now what will happen for the existing startup? They can still enjoy the benefit. For those companies which were incorporated after 2017-18, they can enjoy this privilege for next 3 years. So they are not being left empty-handed, and they will have to get registration within 30th June 2023. So I believe this initiative will pave a new way for our startup community. And then another international best practice you will see, during these COVID days, there were a lot of companies who could not run their business at full swing. They plan to merge with other company. And there are a lot of multinationals you will see, whenever you Google it, then you will see that they are also being merged at global level. But what is our provision at Bangladesh Income Tax Ordinance? So previously, the shareholders of amalgamating company, at least 90% of the shareholders of amalgamating company need to be shareholder of amalgamated company. So now the condition has been relaxed. Only 75% shareholders of amalgamating company need to be the shareholder of amalgamated company. So this is a very welcoming initiative for, I should say, company who are planning to merge or amalgamate. And also, we know in our Company Act, we do not have provision for amalgamation of foreign subsidiaries, because that will require permission from central bank in order to be amalgamated. But now, NBR in the finance bill, you will see they have created provision even for subsidiaries of foreign company to be amalgamated in Bangladesh, not only for local company. So they are staying ahead of amendment in Companies Act. We know Company Act amendment is going to take in place, the third one, and where amalgamations will be looked into. And what are the benefits of this amalgamation? So the benefit that you can see in this amalgamation through this share transfer, if that 75% shareholders are going to get shares in the amalgamated company, they don't need to pay any capital gain tax, which is internationally aligned. And if the transaction is happening other than share, they'll have to pay taxes. And this amalgamated company, if you have losses in the amalgamating company, the amalgamated company can claim those losses and can claim those as an adjustments. If the amalgamating company has got unabsorbed depreciation, the amalgamated company can claim those unabsorbed depreciation in their tax bill. So now amalgamation will become tax profitable because you will see a reduced tax rate. And then we have also tried to look into what are the international best practices. We try to compare with India, Singapore, and Pakistan law. And in our views, the provision that has been that has been proposed fits with the international best practices even. Mamoon, please let me know if I'm too detailed or I should run faster. Eh?
Oh, no,
because
no,
you allowed
please.
me time.
Yeah, please carry on. It says like it requires as in detailed discussion. And okay. you are
I can run faster right. Even. Eh?
No, you are quite in the right space.
Okay, thank you, Mamoon. And then one of the new thing, as I have said, a lot of international transactions are happening and we cannot ascertain what would be our fair share of tax revenue. So perhaps if you look into our income tax ordinance, especially section 18(2)(c), section 18(2)(c) says, if you have got like, if your grandparents are going to do any transactions, relating to you, means an interest or asset relating to Bangladesh, then your grandparent will have to pay taxes in Bangladesh. So the law was enacted back in 2018. But the problem was there was no definite rule how to calculate those taxes, how to calculate those, numbers. So now, for example, if I see, say if a subsidiary is there in Bangladesh, TNT, and if their holdco is from Singapore, they have 60% shares in Bangladesh company. So now this holdco is owned by a US company, 100% owned by US company. So now this grandparent is planning to transfer its parent share or their immediate holding company's share to another company in the US. So this company is not the shareholder of TNT Inc. is not being changed. Rather, the shareholder of the parent of TNT Bangladesh will be changed. So now this will not be reported anywhere in Bangladesh, statutory filing, because this is not coming through this is not a transaction happening in Bangladesh. This is a transaction happening between US to US company. So how you are going to get your share? So now with these detailed rules, if you look into, they have given a very precise standard how the valuation will be done. And most importantly, the value of professional will be increased because this requires exercise of professional valuer. So we can see a new avenues coming for the valuer as well. So Bangladesh will get their fair share of tax revenue through this sort of rules. And if you are working in the banking company, then or NBFI, and bank and NBFI, they invest a lot of money in treasury bill and bond, especially in T-bond or T-bills. So now for strategic purpose, what they do after certain years, they do these transactions through repo or reverse repo. So now when they are doing these transactions or even when they are transferring the right after 4 or 5 years, they accrue the interest, and this was categorized as capital gain as far as Bangladesh bank regulation is concerned. It's a capital kind of thing. It was not reported through profit and loss, rather it was coming through other comprehensive income kind of thing. So now this was tax exempt as far as section 32(7) is concerned. Now this gain will be subject to tax because that exemption has been withdrawn. So if you are working in the bank, if you had been enjoying this tax exemption, you cannot enjoy it any longer. And one of the, I should say, change that will impact many of our startup organizations, especially the company who are starting their business for the first time, they end up doing this pre-incorporation expenditures. We all know, if you look into International Accounting Standard, IAS 38, it says if you have got these pre-opening expenses or pre-incorporation expenses, you will have to charge this in P&L, in profit and loss. So when you submit your tax computation, the DCT does not accept this sort of pre-incorporation expenditure as an allowable expenditure. You go to appeal, tribunal and high court, nobody allows that because it is not in the law. But right now, through this finance bill, you can claim this pre-incorporation expenditure for at least 5 years on a straight line basis. So now you will see a reduced tax bill coming when you are making profit, your company is being profitable. And then we had been talking about TDS, and since you are here, at least I can tell you, the government is heavily dependent on tax deduction at source. Out of our total revenue collection, means income tax revenue collection, as far as the latest report is concerned, 60%, almost 60% of our revenue comes through TDS, tax deduction at source. So government is highly dependent on TDS. So now there has been a significant policy shift, I should say, because we have seen there are a lot of ups and downs with regard to tax deduction under Section 52, Rule 16. So now, if you're a supplier of raw material to an industrial undertaking, previously or currently you are deducting highest tax at the rate of 7%. So now, through this finance bill, it has been proposed that this will be reduced to 4%. So this is very significant because from 7% to 4% is not a very small change. This is a big change. And this will reduce effective tax rate of those small suppliers of raw materials. And this will also give benefit to people who are buying it, because ultimately these sort of taxes are being grossed up to some extent. And also for trading goods, this will be taxed, or the TDS will be 5%, not 7%. And for book supply, it will be 3%. So we can see a lot of rationalization has been made in terms of TDS and raw material, although we wanted more, but we cannot get everything in 1 year. We'll have to ask, because we'll have got significant dependency, we'll have to ask for it on a year-by-year basis. And then I could have taken you through at least 10 or 12 different slides, but this is a summary of a few other TDS related change. So now one of the most important changes, like I should say in serial number 3, if you look into Section 52AA, then you will see at least there are 14 different types of services where apnake hisab rakhte hoto, like whether the total bill during July to June exceeds 25 lakh taka or not. If it is less than 25 lakh taka, then 10%. If it is more than 25 lakh taka, then 12%. So now the section has been rationalized. So there will be no 25 lakh taka barrier. The TDS would be like 10% or 2%, 3% based on the proposal that has been made. And also, if you are a transport service provider, means if you are renting car, previously you had to deduct 4% tax, now you'll have to deduct 5% tax. For payment to mobile financial services, there are no TDS. And for internet service, I should not say there is not applicable. Internet service was being taxed, or TDS was collected on a different nomenclature basis. So now the nomenclature has been changed. So there is a specific nomenclature. So now if you are paying to your internet service provider, ISP company, you'll have to deduct 10% tax. And for the bandwidth payment, a lot of our I should say distributor, they are importing bandwidth from many different countries. So the TDS rate was 20%. This has been reduced to 10%. And there are other important changes, TDS on bank interest. So if you're a company, your company, if you make any deposit to any bank or NBFI, previously they used to collect 10% taxes. Now they will collect 20% taxes. So what will happen? So now, if you have got low income from your business, but you have got high dependency on your finance income, so in that case, these will create a refund for you because of higher deduction of taxes. So you need to see this implication from holistic point of view. And in certain cases, your TDS will go up by 50% if you do not collect proof of return submission from your vendor. And again, this is going to add extra burden to you, because previously you had to collect a copy of ETIN. Now you'll have to collect copy of tax return submission proof. So this will add extra burden to the company, and this will also ensure compliances at the end of the day, because we all talk about we have more than 7 million ETIN holder, but only 2.5 million submits return. So through this introduction, I think there will be a significant changes coming in, and these will make us more inclusive. And in our income tax ordinance, there was no definition of export. Right now, they have proposed like one definition for export. In VAT, we have definition of export, but not in income tax. And this definition of export is really, really substantive. And this will encourage our exporter, and this will also make our export diversity. But what has been done since the rate has been made uniform? So now there is no 53 quadruple B. There will be only 53 double B for all export. The bad news is your tax deduction, TDS, is going to go up by 100%. Previously, the bank was collecting 0.5%. Now the bank will collect 1%, which is 100% higher as compared to last year. So I tried to, again, I like maths, I like analysis. I tried to look into the impact. So I took the financial figures from 3 listed companies. I did not disclose the name, ABC, DEF, or GHI. I tried to look into their revenue and PBT. So what margins they are making. Say, for example, for theoretical purpose, their PBT is taxable income, total income for tax purpose. So this ABC is making 1.10% margin. This DEF is making 3.4% margin. GHI is making 3.47% margin. In average, they're making 2.53% as margin. So now, if tax rate is like, you can say 10 or 12%. So now your tax on PBT was supposed to be 4 taka or 12 taka or 7 taka. So now if I apply the same TDS rate for next year, and keeping in mind the revenue will remain same, then bank will collect 29 taka, 30 taka or 17 taka. So for after you made a profit of 32, your tax charge will be 29. So your effective tax rate will be 91.23. It is not 10% or 12%. For this company, 30%. For this company, 28%. On an average, your effective tax rate will be 40%. So governments, if you tell the rate is 10 or 12%, that is not the case, because this sort of, I should say, hike in TDS will increase their effective tax rate. And then you will see, in order to bring compliances, a lot of new provisions has been brought in. And I have seen this is one of the chapter where government is trying to ask you to be more compliant. So previously what happened, say if a company is not deducting or depositing taxes on timely basis, or for short deduction of taxes, the provision was to penalize the company, not to the employee. So now you need to be careful. So now if you are working for a company, and if you are approving the payment, and if you do not deposit these taxes on time, if you make short deduction, or if you do not deduct on top of the company obligation, the authority can penalize you too. Means the approver will have to be very careful. Otherwise, the authority will come and penalize you. And then we all know the government is planning to digitize the whole system, and NBR has taken few initiatives for ETDS. Few days back, I ran a session on ETDS even. I have seen a lot of encouragement through the participants, where more than 650 people joined us. So now this tax official can go and visit your office, and they can ask for information about your code of technologies. They can extract data, image, and any input. They can place marks of identification. They can impound and retain books. And if you are not allowing them to do those exercises, they might penalize you by 5 million taka. So please do cooperate them. Otherwise, you will see a lot of penalties are coming to your company. And we have seen, as I have said to you, in order to reduce cost of doing business, we have seen the reporting format for TDS were not uniform. So now monthly salary related report and 108 for yearly submission, this has been made uniform. So now if you take all these 12 months report, and if you gross it up, if you add these up or sum these up, then this will be reflected in 108. So this will make our life easier. And then if you are maintaining provident fund, gratuity, or pension fund, if it is approved, then you don't need to file any return. Please do come forward and immediately get your provident fund or gratuity approved. Otherwise, you'll have to file tax return. And filing tax return is good for me as a consultant. I'll get some fees, but not good for the fund, because they'll have to spend money. And then, as I have shared with you, not only offshore indirect transfer, as far as the law was concerned, previously, like the non-resident company who does not have any PE, they were not supposed to file their tax return in Bangladesh. So now non-resident company will not having any PE will have to file tax return in Bangladesh. Perhaps 2 years back, you have seen all these digital company had been filing VAT return through their VAT agent in Bangladesh. So now they'll have to submit tax return too. So now the question is coming. I don't know how much you are aware about global taxes. Back in October 2020-21, all these G20 countries and OECD, basically OECD is driving the show, and we call it BEPS, Base Erosion Profit Shifting. Already 135 countries have agreed to a common two-point issues or two-pillar issues. So one of the things that is coming in, all these big companies or digital company, they have operation in more than 130 or 140 countries, but they are only paying taxes where they are registered. But they have got a large base in many countries. So all these companies, they are not getting any revenue. Rather, their revenue from that location is being transferred from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. So now all these companies will have to file tax return in Bangladesh through this amendment. And technically speaking, as I have said, one of the things that we end up when we reply to the foreign counterpart, especially the FDI company, we know once the assessment has been made, you might reopen, the tax authority might reopen under 120 or section 93. But again, we have seen in few occasions, the people from local revenue audit, AG audit, they come and re-audit it. So now this local revenue department cannot come and question the audit made by the DCT or reopen file which has been done by the authority. So once the assessment has been done by the tax authority, other department cannot come and ask questions. And this gives you a big relief, because otherwise you'll have to face many audits. And now law has been made quite stringent. If you are not complying, for non-compliance, the authority might come and disconnect all your utility connections. So this is not, I should say, don't be so fearful at this point in time, because you will have to keep in mind that if you are up to date with the tax authority, if you are making regular communications with them, they will never disconnect you, because when they do it, maybe they have sent a notice to you, but you did not respond to the notice. So they will make an assessment. So if they make an assessment, you have got the right to appeal. So if you do not make an appeal, then your entire demand is not undisputed. Because if you have a dispute, then you can file an appeal to city appeal or tribunal or high court. So you need to make sure that you are having a routine relationship with NBR. You are monitoring your tax file. Otherwise, they will come and disconnect your utility connections. And then in section 184A, you will see there are at least 40 services where the government said you will have to collect ETIN. So now ETIN is no longer acceptable. You will have to collect acknowledgement receipt for renewing or obtaining or licensing those kind of activities. So you need to be very careful, because there is a penal provision of 10 lakh taka for non-compliance of this provision. And not only that, if you go and visit any office, then you will see, even if you go to BDRL office, BDRL will have to display their ETIN copy in front of the reception. So now, instead of ETIN, you will have to display the proof of return submission in your wall. And this proof of return could be acknowledgement receipt of return submission, a system generated certificate containing name and ETN, a certificate issued by the DCT. So now, if you need to get a certificate from NBR, maybe it will take time. But if you show or display the acknowledgement receipt will have your total income, your tax payment. So everyone will get to know about your income and tax payment, whoever is coming and visiting your office. So you need to be very careful about confidentiality of your information. And if you do not do that, the national board, the official can penalize you for an amount not exceeding 1 million taka. And also one of the interesting changes that I have seen, if you are maintaining a bank account and if your credit balance at any point in time exceeds 1 million taka, you will have to give a return acknowledgement copy to your banker. Otherwise, the banker will stop you doing the transactions, because that will be considered illegal. So you need to make sure you are submitting proof of your return submission if you have balance over taka 1 million. So all your confidential information, even related to your income, need to be submitted to the bank. And also, we need to think about like whether as a country we are ready at this point in time. Just to give you an example, so if you have a savings, if a retired person or if a family person have a saving of taka 30 lakh as a balance, and if they are getting like 3 lakh taka as interest income, so they need to run their family through their interest income. So now even up to 3 lakh taka we have got exemptions from payment of taxes, but unfortunately you cannot maintain more than 1 million taka as balances, otherwise you have to give this proof of return submission. So this is one of the change that you must look into. So I know actually there are a lot of changes I could have shared with you, and we could have spoke about it for the entire night, but I took more than the time Mamoon has allocated to me, and I'm really sorry for that. Again, I do apologize to keep you waiting for at least 40 minutes. It was beyond my control. Today, traffic towards Uttara was really, really bad. And I again back apology. Thank you very much for your patience hearing.
No, thank you.
Mamoon,
thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dada. Thank you very much for your very robust, I must say, robust presentation covering all issues. Before going for the next questions, like question answer session, I just want to highlight one point, like as the tax is one of the instrument of the fiscal policy, it has two major implications if we see. One is that it directly and indirectly affects the business environment. It sometimes promote some businesses, and on the other hand, it also try to create some social impact as well. As we can see that from the presentation, it is used, like corporate tax rate is used as instrument of inclusiveness by creating some incentives for the corporates. Like we can see here that inclusion of the minority or underprivileged people as an criteria for the tax instruments. And another impact of the tax is that, or like tax reforms, particularly corporate tax reforms, that how does the corporate tax rate or the changes of the corporate tax rates affects the generation of the tax revenue. As we can see from the statistics at the very beginning we have shown, and Dada has also re-emphasized that one of the major challenges of Bangladesh economy at this moment is a growing economy, but one of the challenges, key challenges, is that to generate revenue, means our GDP is growing fast, but our revenue is not growing as fast as our GDP. So if we cannot create the revenue generation base, then it will be difficult for us to meet the growing need of reinvestment. So from that point of view, our today's discussion exclusively underlying the questions that how does the current tax reform affect the generation of the tax revenue generation. So Dada's all the issues he covers, I think it gives us the platform to understand that how do different reforms have been taken related with the corporate tax rate or other additional factors in generating our more like tax revenue. And another point I want to highlight, I think based on that, everyone, all participants can ask the question, that is like, corporate tax rate as a whole affects the ecosystem of tax generation. Okay, so different limbs are affected when a single element of the corporate tax rate is changes. So I believe all we get a very precise input from the presentation of Snehashish Da, which is the beauty of his presentation. I'm always the big fan of his presentation and the learner from, he's my mentor of learning as well. And BDRL, Bangladesh Rating Agency, and DNB family, Dun & Bradstreet family, is very grateful to Dada and our Asian CEO, Dun & Bradstreet SAM CEO, Rajesh Mirchandi has also conveyed the gratitude to the Dada that like he agrees to share his knowledge, share his understanding about a national interest issue and to enlighten all of us. And now I think with these few words, now I'd like to request there are a few questions on the question box first. Or would you like to take those questions, or few people have raised their hand? Which one we go for that? Yes, we can see.
I think Mamun, whoever has raised the question, means written the question, they should get the priority because they have taken the toll. Let's answer those first, and then we'll take the questions one by one. And Mamun, in the meantime, what I have done, I've shared the presentation in the chat box. Whoever is interested, then they can download it from the chat box, or Samira can download it and share with the participants, whoever has joined this session today. Samira, if you can take it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dada. Now, if so, then the chat box is available to you. If you respond, please.
Yeah. So, let me see the Q&A box. Oh, it is Mr. Kamrul Bari. I think, yeah. So he has asked a lot of questions. So question number 1, 2, 3, and then another one. Fine. The first question is like the corporate, if he's around, then he can speak out as well. If you allow him to speak, then he can speak and ask the question.
Yeah.
I don't mind. If you can allow Mr. Bari to ask the question, yeah.
Okay, Samira, can you allow?
I think he's a participant. He cannot speak. Participants cannot.
If you allow, I think possibly he can.
Yeah. If
Samira?
If they raise the hand, then you can bring them into panelists.
Okay.
So there is
Bari.
Okay, I think IT can help.
Promote to panelists. Okay, let me handle it. Yeah. Okay. Bari bhai, if you please ask the question. Bari bhai, আপনি কি শুনতে পাচ্ছেন?
আচ্ছা, আমরা মামুন উনি আসুক, যদি আস্তে আস্তে আমরা একটু দেখি। বারি ভাই একটু বলি, the corporate tax rate needs. Hello?
সরি, একটু ইন্টারাপশন হচ্ছিল। আমাকে কি শোনা যাচ্ছে এখন?
হ্যাঁ, শোনা যাচ্ছে। একদম পারফেক্ট।
সরি টু ইন্টারফেয়ার। দাদা কি অবস্থা, ভালো আছেন?
সো ফার গুড। আপনার কথা শুনে আরো ভালো লাগছে।
অনেকদিন পর দেখা হলো। তো আসলে হচ্ছে কি এই বিষয়টা, মানে আমরা তো আগেই আলোচনা করেছি আর কি একটা সময় এই জিনিসগুলো নিয়ে, কিন্তু জাস্ট একটা আপনার এই ইনসাইট গুলো আর কি সবার সঙ্গে শেয়ার করাটার জন্য আর কি। যে ফার্স্ট অফ অল প্রথমে যেটা বললাম যে যদি আমরা এফডিআই এর কথা চিন্তা করি, তাহলে ট্যাক্স রেটটার সঙ্গে এফডিআই সম্পর্কটা অ্যাজ আ বেসিক্যালি ইট ওয়াজ অ্যান অ্যাসাইনমেন্ট, একটা রিসার্চ ছিল আর কি ফ্রম মাই প্রিভিয়াস প্লেস যেখানে আমি কাজ করতাম। মানে আমরা একসঙ্গে তো উই হ্যাড লটস অফ ডিসকাশনস এন্ড চ্যাটস। তো ওইখানে তখন আমি একটা কাজ করেছিলাম দেখার জন্য, জাস্ট টু সি হোয়াট ইজ দ্য রিলেশনশিপ বিটুইন ট্যাক্স রেট, কর্পোরেট ট্যাক্স রেট এবং এফডিআই আমাদের দেশের ক্ষেত্রে। তো দেখা গেছে যে কর্পোরেট ট্যাক্স রেট এবং এফডিআই বাই ডাইরেকশনাল কজালিটি আছে। অর্থাৎ যদি কর্পোরেট ট্যাক্স রেট কমানো হয়, তখন একদিকে যেরকম আপনার এফডিআই ইনফ্লোটা বাড়ে, আবার হচ্ছে গিয়ে যদি এফডিআই ইনফ্লো বাড়ে তাহলে সেই ক্ষেত্রে আবার কর্পোরেট ট্যাক্স রেট কমে, প্রবাবলি ডিউ টু দি প্রেসার। সো বাই ডাইরেকশনাল কজালিটি দেখা গেছে আর কি। তো এই ক্ষেত্রে আর কি আমার যেটা প্রশ্ন ছিল সেটা হচ্ছে যে কর্পোরেট ট্যাক্স রেট আমাদের এখনো কিন্তু এই রিজিয়নে এই রিজিয়নে কম্পারিজনে অনেক বেশি। আর ওভারঅল যদি ওয়ার্ল্ড এভারেজ দেখি তাহলে সেটা অ্যাপ্রক্সিমেটলি 22%। সো ওই লেভেলে নামিয়ে না নিয়ে আসলে তখন এফডিআই আসলে আমাদের ইনফ্লোটা তো খুব বেশি একটা হবে না। রেমিটেন্স নির্ভরশীলতাও তো আমাদের প্রবাবলি কমাতে হচ্ছে ইন ভিউ অফ লেটস সে fluctuating remittance figure. তাহলে সেই ক্ষেত্রে এফডিআই ক্যান বি another major source of let's say earning foreign ওটাকে কি বলবো, ফরেন কারেন্সি ফর দি কান্ট্রি, বিকজ এটাও তো আপনার এডিশনাল ইনভেস্টমেন্ট নিয়ে আসবে, প্লাস হচ্ছে এমপ্লয়মেন্ট জেনারেট করবে ফর দি কান্ট্রি অ্যাজ এ হোল। তো এই যে সব জিনিসগুলোর আর কি কথা চিন্তা করে তারপর আমার এই প্রশ্নটা ছিল আর কি। ইন জেনারেল এটা একটা বিষয়। আর বাদ বাকিগুলো হচ্ছে গিয়ে বেসিক্যালি ওই যে ডিসিটির ক্ষেত্রে যেমন দেখা গেছে যে
আমরা মনে হয় বাড়ি ভাই আগে একটা একটা করে নিই আর কি। হ্যাঁ, so thank you very much আর কি for your first question. So already you have done some research. আমরা তো আর রিসার্চের লোক না যে বিডিআরএল মনে করে রিসার্চ করে আমাকে সুন্দর সুন্দর একটা মান্থলি একটা বুলেটিন দেয়, আমি তখন এটা পড়ে অনেক কিছু পাই আর কি, বুঝছেন, আমি নিজে। তো এদের রিসার্চের এই সমস্ত জিনিসগুলো আসলে অনেক সময় দিতে হয়, ধৈর্য লাগে। তো আমরা তো ধরেন রিসার্চে খুব বেশি করতে চাই না আর কি। আই হোপ
you are really kind bhai, I know that you do a lot of research. You really do a lot.
আচ্ছা, এখন যে জিনিসটা আছে আপনি তো নিজে বলেছেন যে আমাদের গ্লোবাল স্ট্যান্ডার্ডের থেকে এখনো হাই আছে। আমি শুধু আপনাকে এটা আশ্বস্ত করতে চাচ্ছি যে যেখানে পরপর 3 বছর 2.5% করে কমাতে কমাতে সেই 35% থেকে আপনার ধরেন 27.5 চলে আসছে ফর প্রাইভেট কোম্পানি। সো উই ক্যান সি দ্য গভর্নমেন্ট ইন্টেনশন, দ্যাট ইজ ভেরি ভেরি ক্লিয়ার। অ্যান্ড অলসো ফর দ্য এফডিআই, আমাদের যে পরিমাণ প্রাইভেট ইনভেস্টমেন্টস এর জন্য অপরচুনিটি আছে থ্রু বেজা, মানে আপনার বাংলাদেশ ইকোনমিক জোনসে যে এক্সামশনস আছে তারা তো ট্যাক্স ফ্রি পাচ্ছে। হাইটেক পার্কে সেখানে ট্যাক্স ফ্রি পাচ্ছে, ডেভেলপার হলে ট্যাক্স ফ্রি পাচ্ছে। এন্ড দেন দেয়ার আর অলসো লট অফ এরিয়াস যেখানে আপনার এখনো দেয়ার আর লট অফ এক্সামশনস বিং গিভেন বাই দ্য গভর্নমেন্ট, ফর দ্যাম দিস ইজ জিরো। আপনি যদি সব জিরো যা আছে এগুলোকে নিয়ে যদি স্ট্যান্ডার্ড 27.5 কে যদি আপনি একটা ম্যাথস করেন, মানে আপনি হাইপোথেসিস দাঁড় করান, তখন দেখবেন আপনার আসলে বাংলাদেশের ট্যাক্স রেট আরো অনেক কম, মানে কম্পারেটিভলি আর কি। আমি শুধু হাইটাকে নিব আর যেগুলো এক্সামশন আছে সেগুলো যদি না ধরে তাহলে হবে না। তো আসলে যেহেতু I work with FDI companies, বিশেষ করে majority of our clients are multinationals, I should say more than 90%, and I am also a tax consultant of FICCI, Foreign Investor Chamber of Commerce. I work directly with BIDA even, so on many different occasions. So ওদের ট্যাক্স রেট নিয়ে অবশ্যই একটা ইস্যু ছিল যেটা অ্যাড্রেস করছে গভর্নমেন্ট। What they had been talking about is like মানে আপনার the environment, tax environment itself for promoting Bangladesh as a preferred destination. Even if like if you think about the local industrialists, they are also talking about like কিভাবে আমরা একটা better environment পাবো for tax administration. So what we have been talking about, Bari bhai, শুধু tax rate reduction will not be sufficient. We are talking about digitalizations of the entire process. If you look into the initiatives the government has taken, they have taken a lot of initiatives spending hell lot of money. Bytex was a project that was taken long back. Unfortunately এটা localizations হয়নি। Bytex কে আমরা হয়তো এটাকে আলোর মুখ দেখাতে পারিনি, আমরা শুধু ইটিন জেনারেট করতে পারি Bytex দিয়ে, এরপর আর কিন্তু কিছু হয় নাই। আমরা আসলে কি চেয়েছিলাম, আমরা চেয়েছিলাম এই ডিজিটাল যুগে যেরকম বিডিআরএল একটা ওয়েবিনার করতেছে, আমরা ডিজিটাল যে ট্রান্সফরমেশনটা দেখেছি ইন লাস্ট অ্যাটলিস্ট ডিউরিং দিস কোভিড ডেজ, আমরা চাচ্ছিলাম পার্সোনাল ট্যাক্স রিটার্নটা আমরা অনলাইনে দিই, কর্পোরেট ট্যাক্স রিটার্ন আমরা অনলাইনে দিই। আমরা যখন ডিসিটি নোটিস করবে আমাদের ইমেইলে আসবে, মেসেজে আসবে, আমাকে যখন কাগজ দিতে বলবে আমি অনলাইনে আপলোড করতে পারবো। যদি আমি শুনানিতে ফিজিক্যালি যেতে না পারি, উনি একটা ডিজিটাল শুনানির ব্যবস্থা করবেন, উনি যে অ্যাসেসমেন্ট অর্ডার করবেন উনি আমার সাথে শেয়ার করবেন, আমি ওইটা দেখতে পারবো, উনি অ্যাসেসমেন্ট অর্ডারটা আমাকে ইমেইলে পাঠিয়ে দিবেন। আমি আপিল করতে চাই সেটাও অনলাইনে আপিল করতে পারবো, আপিলের প্রসিডিং সেটাও অনলাইনে হবে। এখন এই যে জিনিসটা আছে, মানে আমাদের প্রবলেমটা হচ্ছে আমরা সেই ইনফ্রাস্ট্রাকচারটা বা রেডিনেস আমরা এখন পর্যন্ত করতে পারিনি। এনবিআর অনেক চেষ্টা করে যাচ্ছে এবং আপনাকে এটা বলতে পারি আওয়ার কারেন্ট চেয়ারম্যান, এনবিআর চেয়ারম্যান, উনি ঐকান্তিক ভাবে ওনারা অনেক মনে প্রাণে চেষ্টা করে যাচ্ছেন যে কিভাবে হোল সিস্টেমটা ডিজিটাইজ করা যায়। ওনার চেষ্টার কিন্তু কমতি নেই। তো এই জন্যই আমরা হোপফুল, যদি ধরেন এই সমস্ত জিনিসগুলোকে ডিজিটাইজ করে ফেলতে পারি তাহলে দেখবেন আমরা যে ইজ অফ ডুইং বিজনেস, আমরা যে আপনার টাইম লাগে, করাপশনস এর কথা বলছি, ডিজিটাইজেশন হলে এগুলো কমে যাবে। ধরেন একটা এক্সাম্পল হিসেবে ভিএটি তে চিন্তা করেন, ভিএটি রিটার্ন যখন অনলাইনে হয়ে গেছে, এখন রিটার্ন আপনি ফাইল করতে পারেন অনলাইনে, ভ্যাট অফিসে যেতে হয় না। আফটার ইউ সাবমিট দ্য রিটার্ন ইউ ক্যান গেট একটা অ্যাকনোলেজমেন্ট রিসিপ্ট দ্যাট ইউর ভ্যাট রিটার্ন হ্যাজ বিন ফাইলড। দেন নেক্সট স্টেপ আপনি 4.3 অনলাইনে সাবমিট করতে পারেন। এরকম অনেকগুলো জিনিস ভ্যাটের চেষ্টা করতেছে অটোমেশন করতে। সেইভাবে ধাপে ধাপে যখন আমরা অটোমেশনের ফুল ফ্লেজেড একটা অবস্থায় চলে যাবে, তখন এফডিআই কোম্পানিগুলো উইল হ্যাভ মোর রিলায়েন্স, যে না তাদেরকে আননেসেসারিলি হ্যারাসড হতে হয় না থ্রু দ্য সিস্টেম। সো আপনার রেট প্লাস একটা কনজেনিয়াল এনভায়রনমেন্ট ইফ ইউ ক্যান ক্রিয়েট, সো বোথ উইল অ্যাক্সেলারেট আমার এই কান্ট্রির রেভিনিউ অগমেন্টেশনে। বিট এফডিআই, শুধু এফডিআই দিয়ে চিন্তা করলে হবে না, আমাদের কিন্তু প্রাইভেট ইনভেস্টমেন্টসও দরকার। মানে আমাদের যারা এন্টারপ্রেনার্স যারা আছে তারাও ইনভেস্টমেন্ট করতে ভয় পায়, যে বাংলাদেশে এরকম ফ্রিকুয়েন্ট পলিসি চেঞ্জ এই সমস্ত জায়গায় কমপ্লেক্সিটি গুলোর কারণে। সো এটা আসলে একটা আইসোলেটেড ইস্যু না। জি জি, গ্রাজুয়ালি কমে আসবে, আমি হোপফুল। আমাদের এই চেয়ারম্যান স্যার এবং তার একটা ডাইনামিক টিম আছে এবং তারা অনেক কাজ করে যাচ্ছে এই অটোমেশনের জন্য। থ্যাংক ইউ বারি ভাই।
আইভ্যাসেরও তো বোধহয় বিষয়টা, সরি টু ইন্টারাপ্ট, মানে আইভ্যাসের বিষয়টাও তো বোধহয় এখানে যে এটা ওটার সঙ্গে ইনক্লুডেড, ইজন্ট ইট? যদি আমরা পুরোটা করতে পারি।
আইবাস তো একটা গভর্নমেন্ট সিস্টেম, সো আইবাস এর সাথে হয়তো ট্যাক্সের সিস্টেমটা ইন্টিগ্রেট হবে। সো আইবাস এর সাথে ট্যাক্স যদি ইন্টিগ্রেট হয় সেটা হয়তো আপনার ধরেন আপনার মানে প্লেটে 10টা ইস্যু আছে, 10টার মধ্যে একটা রিজলভ হচ্ছে, আরো 9টা ইস্যু আছে যেগুলো আপনাকে ইন্টিগ্রেট করতে হবে। সো একটা
ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল
লাভ হবে না আর কি। হ্যাঁ জি,
থ্যাংক ইউ। সরি টু ইন্টারাপ্ট, এন্ড ইট ওয়াজ অ্যাজ ইউজুয়াল মানে অসম একটা প্রেজেন্টেশন ছিল, অনেক ডিটেইল। থ্যাঙ্কস আ লট, অনেক কিছু জানার সুযোগ হয়েছে। থ্যাংক ইউ।
আপনার আর কোশ্চেন নেই বাড়ি ভাই নাকি?
আরেকটা ছিল যেটা, সেটা হচ্ছে কি বেসিক্যালি, জি
আরেকজন থেকে শুনি মনে হয় নাকি? আরেকজন থেকে শুনি তারপর আসি নাকি?
ইয়া,
আমরা সবাইকে সুযোগ দিই আর কি বাড়ি ভাই।
সেটাই মামুন ভাই, থ্যাংক ইউ। জি
ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ very much. Another one raised hand, that is Mr. Mahbub Khan Chaudhary. Okay, let me promote him. I think due to the technical problem, he can't be. Lira, could you please try Mr. Mahbub Khan Chaudhary to promote him as the panelist? Yeah, he has been in there. So, Mr. Mahbub, could you please ask your question?
Lira, please
I can say Ashish Kumar Ghosh, Ahmad, Kushal Imtiaz, Ariful Islam, আরেকজন হচ্ছে anonymous attendee, তারাও কিন্তু কোয়েশ্চেন করে আর কি।
ওকে, আশিস,
আরেকজন হচ্ছে anonymous, আরিফুল। আচ্ছা, anonymous attendee উনি যে প্রশ্নটা করেছেন সেটার উত্তরটা হয়তো আমি একটু দিয়ে দিই, আপনি বাকিদেরকে প্রমোট করেন। বলতে কেউ যদি WPPF না দেয় তবে ট্যাক্সের উপর কি প্রভাব পড়বে? ভাই এটাই তো আমরা বলছি যে ধরেন আপনি একটা ল দিয়ে বলছেন WPPF দিতে হবে, সো তাহলে আপনি যদি না দেন ইটস এ নন কমপ্লায়েন্স উইথ লেভেল ল। এখন WPPF যদি না দেয় সেটার জন্য তো আর আপনি এক্সপেন্সেস হিসেবে আর ট্যাক্সে ক্লেম করবেন না। আমরা বারবার বলতেছি যে দেখেন এই সমস্ত নন কমপ্লায়েন্ট কোম্পানিগুলোকে কোম্পানিতে করতে হলে তাহলে আমি কি করব, আমাকে তাদেরকে একটা সুবিধা দিতে হবে। কি জন্য? যে তারা যদি কমপ্লাই করে তাহলে আপনি কি পাবেন, প্রফিটটা দেখতে পাবেন। কারণ কোম্পানিদের এমপ্লয়ীদের একটা প্রেসার থাকবে যে WPPF তারা পেতে চায়, তখন প্রফিটটা অ্যাকচুয়াল আসবে, তাহলে আপনি ওই প্রফিটের কারণে আপনার ট্যাক্সের শেয়ারটাও পাবেন। সো যারা দিবে না, স্বাভাবিক, আপনি যদি WPPF কে না দিয়ে থাকে সে তো তাকে তার ট্যাক্সে ইনএডমিসিবল করার কোনো সুযোগ নেই। সো কমপ্লায়েন্ট হলে আপনার কিন্তু একটু কি কস্ট বেড়ে যাবে বলে মনে হচ্ছে আর কি। আশা করি আপনি আনসারটা পেয়েছেন। anonymous attendee, হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, নূরে মাহবুব।
জি, yeah, Noor Mahbub, could you please hear? Okay, Ashish, could you please unmute and ask your question?
My question is to Snehashish Dada. Dada, thanks for your nice presentation. And my question is do you think that new tax policy will encourage foreign investment?
Thank you, Ashish. So, I cannot agree more the importance of foreign investments in Bangladesh, especially during this trade deficit kind of situation. So we need more investments to have more reserve and currency balances. So I believe the question that Apnar Baribhai has raised, I tried to answer that question. So there are a lot of initiatives have been taken by the government. আপনি দেখবেন এখানে অনেক ক্ষেত্রে আপনার ট্যাক্স রেট রিডাকশনস থেকে শুরু করে আরো অনেকগুলো বেনিফিটস কিন্তু এখানে দেওয়া হয়েছে। সো অল দিস থিংস আর টু সাম এক্সটেন্ট পজিটিভ, অ্যান্ড all this positive note will definitely help. কারণ দিনের শেষে কি আমরা কি চাই? আমরা চাই ROI, হ্যাঁ ROI-টা বেশি। আমরা চাই আমাদের পেব্যাক পিরিয়ডটা যেন ফাস্টার হয়। সো এই চেঞ্জেস গুলো হলে আমাদের ROI-ও বাড়বে, হ্যাঁ আপনার আমার পেব্যাক পিরিয়ডটাও কিন্তু কমবে এবং এনপিভিও পজিটিভ হবে, মানে যত রেট গুলো কমে আর কি। সো অল দিস উইল ডেফিনেটলি গিভ অ্যাডভান্টেজেস আপনার টু এফডিআই কোম্পানি। এন্ড গত বছরও কিন্তু আমাদের অনেকগুলো নতুন প্রভিশনস আসছে, অনেকগুলো নতুন এরিয়াতে ইনভেস্টমেন্টের অপরচুনিটি খুলে দিচ্ছে। ধরেন আমরা একটা বিপ্লব দেখছি ইলেকট্রনিক্সে, যে ইলেকট্রনিক্সে ট্যাক্স সুবিধা দেওয়ার কারণে ইলেকট্রনিক্সে আমাদের এখানে একটা মোটামুটি সেলফ সাফিসিয়েন্সি হয়ে আমরা এক্সপোর্ট করছি। এখন দেখবেন ফর লাইট ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং, ফর আপনার টেকনিক্যাল ট্রেনিং টাইপস অফ কিছু ইস্যুসে, হসপিটালসে, ফর কার ম্যানুফ্যাকচারিং এ লট অফ ইনসেন্টিভস হ্যাভ বিন গিভেন। সো আমরা যদি এগুলো পজিটিভলি প্রমোট করতে পারি, আমরাই যদি আমাদেরকে খারাপ বলি, কেউ আমাদেরকে ভালো বলবে না ভাই। আমাদের সরকার অনেক ভালো ভালো ইনিশিয়েটিভ নিচ্ছে, কিন্তু এগুলো পাবলিসিটি নাই। মানে বাংলাদেশ বলতে এখনো মানুষ একটা খারাপ একটা ছবি দেখতে চায়, বন্যার ছবি দেখে, দুর্যোগের ছবি দেখে, কেউ বলে না যে ইট ইজ এ ল্যান্ড অফ অপরচুনিটিস। আমরা যদি আমাদেরকে প্রমোট করতে পারি, ডেফিনেটলি উই ক্যান ব্রিং এফডিআই। আশিস।
ওকে দাদা, থ্যাংক ইউ।
Thank you, Dada. Mahabub, Mr. Mahabub, if you please unmute and ask your question. Okay, possibly there may be some technical problem.
এখানে একজন আছে নূরে মাহবুব, আরেকজন আছে আহমেদ কুশাল। হ্যাঁ, দুজনকে আনছেন।
Ahmed Kushal, could you please ask the question? Unmute and ask the question. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for allowing me to ask you a question. Couple of months back, Mr. Abul Kashem Khan, the chairperson of Business Initiative Leadership Development and former president of Dhaka Chamber of Commerce and Industry, commented in a newspaper article, quote, "Corporate tax should be collected on profit, not on revenue. Advance income tax without refund or effective adjustment made the cut in corporate tax futile for us," unquote. Sir, can you please share your thought on this?
So Kushal, thank you very much for raising a very, very valid question, I should say. Very valid. I must appreciate your sense of knowledge at this point in time. So, I cannot agree more with আপনার শেজাদ ভাই, মানে আবুল কাশেম খান যার কথা বলছেন। তো আপনি বিল্ডের চেয়ারপারসন, আসলে উনার টার্ম শেষ হয়ে গেছে, এখন ব্যারিস্টার নিহাত কবির হচ্ছেন চেয়ারম্যান। উনি ফরমার প্রেসিডেন্ট অফ বিল্ড, উনি ঢাকা চেম্বারের প্রেসিডেন্ট ছিলেন। তো উনি এখন অন্য একটা অর্গানাইজেশন এফবিসিসিআই ডিরেক্টর হিসেবে আছেন আর কি। তো উনার সাথে আমার অনেক কাজ করার অভিজ্ঞতা আছে, উনার ফারসাইটেডনেস, বিজনেস নলেজ নিয়ে আমার অবশ্যই অনেক ডিপ রেসপেক্ট আছে। সো হোয়াট হি ইজ সেইং ইজ লাইক, আপনার আমরা মনে করি ইনকাম ট্যাক্সের প্রিন্সিপাল কি, আমি জানি না চাণক্যের অর্থনীতি পড়ছেন কিনা। চাণক্যের অর্থনীতি একটা বই আছে, এটা ধরেন কত 500 years old একটা বই আছে। ওগুলো হচ্ছে প্রিন্সিপাল আর ট্যাক্স কানুন, যেগুলো দিয়ে আপনার ট্যাক্স প্রিন্সিপাল গুলো গড়ে উঠছে। তো ট্যাক্স কি জিনিস, ইনকাম ট্যাক্স কারা দেয়? ডাইরেক্ট ট্যাক্সের প্রিন্সিপাল হচ্ছে আপনি ইউ আর্ন অ্যান্ড ইউ পে ট্যাক্সেস, আর ইনডাইরেক্ট ট্যাক্স হচ্ছে ইউ কনজিউম অ্যান্ড পে ট্যাক্সেস। এখন আমাদের যে প্রভিশন, ধরেন আপনি আর্নিং না, আপনার টার্ন ওভারের উপর ট্যাক্স দিতে হচ্ছে। তো টার্ন ওভারের ট্যাক্স দিতে হলে ইরেসপেক্টিভ অফ প্রফিট আর লস ইউ নিড টু পে ট্যাক্স। তো সেটা তো আপনার কোনো বিধান হতে পারে না। হ্যাঁ, তো এটা বিধান হতে পারে না, ইট গোস এগেইনস্ট দ্য ফান্ডামেন্টাল প্রিন্সিপালস অফ ট্যাক্স। এখন ধরেন চাণক্য আজকে থেকে 400-500 বছর আগে যে প্রিন্সিপাল বলে গেছে, তখনকার যে সামাজিক অবস্থা, এথিক্যাল কন্ডিশনস, সেই কন্ডিশনস এখন নাই। আনফরচুনেটলি দ্যাট হ্যাজ ইভলভড। এখন আপনাকে নিউ চাণক্য নীতি দিতে হবে। নিউ চাণক্য নীতি হবে এরকম যে, ধরেন আমরা দেখছি কোম্পানিগুলো আপনার শত শত কোটি টাকা টার্নওভার, বাট দে আর শোয়িং লস ইন দেয়ার আপনার ফাইন্যান্সিয়াল স্টেটমেন্টস। এখন যদি তারা এরকম লসে দেখায়, সরকার আপনার জন্য পদ্মা ব্রিজটা বানাবে কোত্থেকে? আপনি যে রাস্তা দিয়ে চলেন, সেই রাস্তাটা করবে কি দিয়ে? আপনি যে মেট্রো রেলের স্বপ্ন দেখছেন, সে রেলটা চালাবে কি দিয়ে? এখন বাংলাদেশ হ্যাজ ইভলভড। আমি বলবো যে বাংলাদেশে ধরেন 2006 সাল থেকে সম্ভবত 16CCC নামে একটা আইন আসছিল, টার্ন ওভারের উপর ট্যাক্স দেওয়া। এখন এটা অ্যাজ এ ট্যাক্স প্র্যাকটিশনার আমি সেটা মানি না, এই প্রিন্সিপালের বিপক্ষে আছি, ছিলাম আর কি। আমি যদি বলি, কারণ কি করবেন, যদি ওই প্রিন্সিপালে থাকেন, সরকার কিন্তু ট্যাক্স পাবে না। তো এই জন্যই মিনিমাম অল্টারনেটিভ ট্যাক্স বা মিনিমাম ট্যাক্স নামে এটা আসছে। এবং I should tell you, other developed country or developing country are copying this strategy from Bangladesh. বাংলাদেশ থেকে যেরকম হরতাল অনেক দেশে ইম্পোর্টেড হয়ে গেছে, এই জিনিসটাও কিন্তু যাচ্ছে, কারণ তাদেরও তো ট্যাক্স দরকার। কুশল, হ্যাঁ। তো এখন কি হয়েছে যে ধরেন এই মিনিমাম ট্যাক্সের কনসেপ্ট আসাতে আমরা ওই প্রিন্সিপাল থেকে সরে গেছি। মানে আমার আয়ের উপরে ট্যাক্স হচ্ছে না, এখন আমার রিসিপ্টস এর উপরে ট্যাক্স হয়ে যাচ্ছে। তো উনার যে কনসেপ্টটা, সেই কনসেপ্টের সাথে আমার সম্পূর্ণ সহমত। তবে এখনো পর্যন্ত আমাদের সেই এথিক্যাল জিনিসটা হয় না। সবাই তো আর শেজাদ ভাইয়ের মতো ব্যবসায়ী না। ওনার ট্যাক্স কনসালটেন্ট আমি, মানে ওনার ট্যাক্স ফাইল, কোম্পানির ট্যাক্স ফাইল আমি দেখি। আই নো, মানে হি ইজ টপ টু বটম কমপ্লায়েন্ট একজন পার্সন। এখন প্রবলেম হচ্ছে ওনার মতো তো সবাই না। ওনার মতো সবাই হলে নিশ্চয়ই মিনিমাম ট্যাক্স থাকতো না। আর যে প্রিন্সিপাল উনি বলছেন, এখানে আমি ওনার সাথে আরো একমত না, একমতের একমত। ধরেন আমরা যে জায়গায় দেখি যে বাজেটে যদি একটা অ্যালোকেশন দেখাতো যে ভাই ঠিক আছে এবছর আমি 1000 কোটি টাকা বরাদ্দ রাখলাম, কি জন্য 1000 কোটি টাকা বরাদ্দ রাখলাম, যারা অতিরিক্ত ট্যাক্স দিচ্ছে তাদেরকে আমি ফেরত দিব। অবশ্যই ফেরতের একটা বিধান আমাদের আয়কর আইনে আছে, ফেরত দিতে কোনো বাধা নেই। কিন্তু এরকম পজিটিভ মাইন্ডসেট নিয়ে যদি অর্থমন্ত্রী মহোদয় নিজে বলে দিত যে আমরা ট্যাক্স দিলে ফেরত দিব। বিদেশে কি হয় কুশল, সেটা হচ্ছে ভাই আপনি ট্যাক্স রিটার্ন ফাইল করছেন, পেই ট্যাক্সেস কালেক্ট করে ফেলছে, আপনার রিফান্ড আসছে, রিফান্ডের চেক অটোমেটিক্যালি উইল বি সেন্ড টু ইউর ব্যাংক অ্যাকাউন্ট। আমরা এখনো তো সেই জায়গায় নিয়ে যেতে পারিনি। আমাদের যদি ওই পরিবেশটা তৈরি হয় তখন আমরা আরো অনেক কমফোর্ট পাবো যে ট্যাক্স দিলেও আমরা ফেরত পাই। তো এরকম অনেক ডিস্টরশন আমাদের আইনে আছে। যতদিন আমাদের সক্ষমতাটা বাড়বে, মানে আমাদের ইন্টারনাল রেভিনিউ জেনারেশনটা বাড়বে, আমাদের ফাঁকি ঝুঁকিগুলো কমে আমরা আসল রেভিনিউটা পাবো, তখন সরকার অবশ্যই সেই সাহস দেখাবে। এখন আমি তো সংসারে চালাতে পারছি না, আমি এই সাহস দেখাবো ওর থেকে কুশল।
Thank you for your detailed answer, sir.
Thank you, Kushal. I think we are really out of the time. But the last comment is that yes, this is the pragmatic approach we have taken, and our policymakers have been taken. But how long we will continue, and considering this reality, that is why my first question or our title of the today's program was that to what extent these corporate tax policies or reforms of corporate tax policies will be helpful for us generating the more tax revenue without hampering individual company means who are good. Like then another question is coming that the transparency of the particularly the financial reporting transparency or the credibility of the financial reporting. So my last question, I think it will be the last question for our today's discussion. So to what extent you underscore the importance of improving, radical improving, I must say, of the financial reporting quality to be used as an instrument of giving support of the tax policy for boosting the tax revenue?
Very difficult questions, huh? So Mamun, the way I believe this thing is like, perhaps you have seen a revolution coming in our whole tax system. Perhaps you have seen DVS is one of them, digital verification system. So this has already made a significant impact in our whole accounting fraternity. So there will be now, being a rater, আপনার কাছে এখন comfort আসবে যে you are rating something which is reliable. এতদিন পর্যন্ত আপনি কিন্তু একটা রিলায়েবল ফাইন্যান্সিয়াল স্টেটমেন্ট,
reasonably reliable.
No, I should not say it's a first of all it has been signed by a professional accountant. So সেই রিলায়েবিলিটিটা আসবে। এখন whether that professional has done his job with due care or not, that's a separate thing. There are glitches everywhere. এখন ওই প্রফেশনাল ঠিকমতো কাজ না করলে there are a lot of professional bodies, regulatory bodies to penalize them if they are not working as per the norms, as per the international standards on auditing. But আমরা as a country লাস্ট, আপনি যদি স্বাধীনতার পর থেকে যদি 50 বছর চিন্তা করেন, এই 50 বছরে আমরা একটা বলতে পারতাম না যে আমরা যে অ্যাকাউন্টস এর উপরে বেস করে রেটিং করতেছি, লোন দিচ্ছি, ট্যাক্স নিচ্ছি, এটা রিলায়েবল কিনা। এখন আমরা স্টেপ 1 কিন্তু কি অলরেডি অ্যাচিভ করেছি। এই জন্য উই মাস্ট গিভ বিগ থ্যাঙ্কস টু কারেন্ট এনবিআর চেয়ারম্যান, উই মাস্ট গিভ বিগ থ্যাঙ্কস টু আইসিএবি ফর আপনার upbringing, I should say, or introducing such a system which is showing us the path for growth. So now at least if you can see the financial statements, the genuine financial statements are being reported, you will have reliability. And then on a case by case আমরা আস্তে আস্তে সামনে গেলে এরকম আনার্ট করতে পারবো লিকেজেস গুলো আরো কোথায় কোথায় আছে। So to start with, this is a fundamental change, then we will reap the benefit going forward. এর থেকে আমরা কিন্তু সামনের দিনে গিয়ে বা সামনের সময়গুলোতে কি আমরা আরো অনেক বেশি পরিমাণে কি পলিসি শিফট গুলো পাবো। যখন আমার say like Mamun, you are doing a research, you are saying you have data for 30,000 company that you have rated.
30,000, yeah.
30,000. So you are living in a mine, data mine, I should say. You have industry knowledge, industry experience of like hell lot of companies. So now you can say what is the gross margin, what is the profit margin, what are the specific expenses to revenue ratio for every industry. আপনি এখন বাংলাদেশের কোন অথরিটি বলতে পারবে যে বাংলাদেশে কোমল পানীয় বা যদি ড্রিঙ্কিং ওয়াটারের আসলে রেভিনিউ কত? কেউ বলতে পারবে? এখন একটা ডাটা যখন তৈরি হয়ে যাবে, আমি যে কোনো ধরনের পলিসি নিব, এই পলিসিটা আমাকে অ্যানালাইসিস করতে হেল্প করবে। সো আই থিঙ্ক এই যে শিফটটা হয়েছে এটা খুবই ইম্পর্টেন্ট ফর আওয়ার ট্যাক্স রেভিনিউ জেনারেশন। নাম্বার ওয়ান, এটা কিন্তু অর্থ আইন দিয়ে হয় নাই, এটা তারও আগে হয়েছে। এখন যেটা দরকার মামুন, আমি পার্সোনালি যেটা ফিল করি, এখন যুগ হচ্ছে ডিজিটাইজেশন। আমি বারবার বলবো, দ্য ফার্স্ট অ্যান্ড ফরমোস্ট থিং দ্যাট আই ফিল অ্যাজ এ প্রফেশনাল অ্যাকাউন্টেন্ট, ধরেন ইন বিডিআরএল, আবার আপনার কোম্পানির উদাহরণ বলবো, অর ইন স্ম্যাক উই হ্যাভ এ আইটি ডিপার্টমেন্ট। আমার অর্গানোগ্রামে আইটি আছে, আইটির একজন পার্টনার আছে, and that IT partner is dedicated. সে যদি আইটি এক্সপার্ট না হয় তাহলে আইটি পার্টনার হতে পারবে না। আইটি ম্যানেজার যে আছে তার সফটওয়্যারের জন্য একজন ডিল করে, হার্ডওয়্যারের জন্য একজন ডিল করে, মেইনটেনেন্সের জন্য একজন আছে, হেল্প লাইনের জন্য একজন আছে। তো এরকম 4-5 জন লোক আছে আইটি দেখতেছে। এখন আমরা যে চেঞ্জেস গুলো করছি এগুলো স্যারের চেষ্টায় বা যারা অফিসিয়ালস অনেক দিনরাত পরিশ্রম করে, বিশ্বাস করেন অনেক অফিসার আছে কোনো শনিবার ছুটি নেয় না, শুধু সিস্টেম ডেভেলপমেন্ট আছে, তারা তাদের নিজের উদ্যোগে ফান্ড ছাড়া কাজটা আগায় যাচ্ছে। এরকম ব্রিলিয়ান্ট অফিসিয়াল বাংলাদেশে আছে, এই জন্যই দেশটা আগাচ্ছে। সো এটা না হয়ে যদি এরকম হতো যে অর্গানোগ্রামে আমরা চেঞ্জ করতে পারতাম, যে ধরেন আপনার এনবিআর এর টপ লেভেলে মানে যারা উপর থেকে নিচে পর্যন্ত আছে প্রত্যেকের আইটি স্পেশালিস্ট স্কিল আছে এবং তাদের জন্য আলাদা ফান্ড দেওয়া আছে ফর ডুইং অল দিস থিং, তাহলে হয়তো আমরা যে ডিজিটালাইজেশন ইনিশিয়েটিভ গুলো নিচ্ছি এগুলো একটা মোমেন্টাম পেত, আমরা আরো দ্রুত আমাদের অবজেক্টিভস গুলোকে অ্যাচিভ করতে পারতাম। আমার এই জন্যই বলতেছি, আমার ফার্ম বিলিভ আছে আমাদের কারেন্ট চেয়ারম্যান স্যার যিনি আছেন উনি অনেক আন্তরিক এই সিস্টেম করার জন্য। আই বিলিভ হি ইজ লুকিং আফটার দিস থিং। সো ওই ডিজিটাইজেশন যখন হয়ে যাবে, ফাইন্যান্সিয়াল ডাটার ইন্টিগ্রিটি যখন হবে, তখন কি হবে মামুন, মানুষের পালানোর পথ থাকবে না। তো ধরেন আপনার যখন সিটি কর্পোরেশন থেকে রিপোর্টটা পাওয়া শুরু হবে কার কার অ্যাপার্টমেন্ট আছে, জমি আছে, ব্যাংকের সাথে ডাটা যখন ইন্টিগ্রেট হবে, তখন আপনি রিটার্ন ফাইল করবেন, আপনি দেখবেন এখন ধরেন আপনি রিটার্ন ফাইল করলেন, আপনার ট্যাক্স আছে, আপনার রিটার্নে দেখার নাই, ডিসিটি অটোমেটিক্যালি আপনাকে নোটিস করবে, কারণ বিআরটি এর ডাটাটা ওর কাছে আছে, মানে এপিআই বলি আমরা এটাকে, সেই ডাটাটা আছে। সো সে এখন আর আপনার পাশাপাশি দৌড়াবে না, সে সিস্টেমে ফালাই দিবে, দেখবে এ তার এই অ্যাসেট গুলো রিপোর্ট করে নাই। এইভাবে যখন অটোমেশনটা হয়ে যাবে তখন দেখবেন পিলফারেজ লিকেজ গুলো কমে আসবে, কমে আসলে সরকার একটা সাস্টেনেবল রেভিনিউ পাবে, যে রেভিনিউ নিয়ে আমরা কুশল বলেন আমাদের বাড়ি ভাই বলেন যে স্বপ্ন দেখতেছে, সেই স্বপ্নগুলো তখন বাস্তবায়ন করা সম্ভব হবে। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ।
So thank you, Dada, and thank you all participants. But the last statement is that we need the aggregate effort. We need the effort from the policymaker. We need the support from NBR, government policymaker, professional accountants, chartered accountants, cost and management accountants, as well as the all other players of the market, including the credit rating companies. So it's an aggregate effort by which we can create an ecosystem by which any policy will get its ultimate return. So with these few words, again, thank you very much, Dada, for giving us such an extraordinary opportunity to learn and to be enlightened from your thought and from your deep research about that issue. So I would like to also convey my gratitude to my colleagues from BDRL and all the enthusiastic participants who have been waiting for almost 45 minutes and bearing the delayed and also like stay with us. And the last special appreciation to Dada that he didn't give up in spite of such a traffic jam or such an uncertainty, which is very as usual in our life. So with these all few words, again, thank you very much all to be with us, and good night. Thank you very much.